So with me is the structure of a scapula, how it looks like. So let's look at the different parts of the scapula. Now this is a left scapula, and when you look at it, you're able to see what you call the glenoid cavity. This is the glenoid cavity. Then on top of the glenoid cavity, there is what we call the coracoid process. The coracoid process. Then this is what we call the spine. This is the structure that is called the spine. Then at this particular end here, there is some slight folding, what we call the suprascapula. This is what we call the suprascapula. Then towards the bottom part, there is a part that is called the metacromion. Then this part that is protruding towards this end here is what we call the acromion. So these are the parts of the scapula that are going to be forming portion of the pectoral girdle. And I did mention something about the articulation with the head of the humerus. How do we have this articulation taking place? Now, this is an example of the humerus. This is an example of the humerus. And the humerus, this is the head of the humerus. So it's always going to be articulating onto the glenoid cavity of the scapula. That is how the articulation occurs. The articulation. So it is going to be articulating with the head of the humerus. And when you look at that type of articulation, actually it can move at all planes. It can move at all planes because it forms what you call the ball and socket joint. Yes, so this is the structure of a humerus and this is the scapula. So here we are going to have the structure. Then here we are going to have the function of that particular structure. Now, how are they adapted to their function? We've talked about glenoid cavity, a glenoid cavity. And what is the importance of this glenoid cavity? It articulates with the head of the humerus. It articulates with the head of the humerus to form, let me continue down here, ball and socket joint. It articulates with the head of the humerus to form what we call the ball and socket joint. So that is one of the functions of the structure called the glenoid cavity that is found on the scapula. Then we have another one that we call the spine. The spine. And what is the importance of this spine? We've realized that, or we've discussed that the spine is an example of a bone that is running along the outer surface of the scapula, and at its free end close to the glenoid cavity are two projections called acromion and metacromion. So this one has acromion and metacromion, and which are important because they're going to provide surface area for articulation of the muscles. For articulation of the shoulder muscles. So these shoulder muscles are going to be articulating on the acromion and metacromion that are structures found on the spine. So it's going to provide that point of articulation. Now, there is another special structure that is just found next to the acromion and metacromion, what we call the clavicle. The clavicle. And what is the importance of this clavicle? It articulates on the one end It articulates on the one end with acromion process, and the other end with sternum, with the sternum. So the clavicle, in real essence, the clavicle is for muscle attachment and aids in movement